Contrary to popular belief, narcissists do not love themselves or anyone else. Narcissism is characterized by exaggerated investment in one's image at the expense of the self. Narcissists are more concerned with how they appear than what they feel. Narcissistic personalities show a need for instant gratification, an inability to contain desire or tolerate frustration. The basic disturbance in the narcissistic personality is the denial of feeling. Narcissists minimize their feelings, aiming to be cool. They are unable to respond emotionally to situations. They are intellectually sophisticated, but emotionally immature. The more narcissistic you are, the less you are identified with your feelings. Narcissistic characters have a need to be perfect and to have others see them as perfect. And actually, in many cases, they can display numerous achievements and seeming success, but they are completely out of place in the world of feeling and do not know how to relate to other people in a real human way. Narcissists are insensitive to the other's suffering or feeling. This insensitivity derives from an insensitivity to their own feelings. We can feel another person's sadness because it makes us sad. We can share another person's joy because it evokes good feelings in us. But if we are incapable of feeling sadness or joy, we cannot respond to these feelings in another person. The absence of feeling is the basic disturbance in the narcissistic personality. Another aspect of narcissism is the need to project an image. Narcissists get hung up on their image. They cannot distinguish between an image of who they imagine themselves to be and an image of who they actually are. Their image has a measure of grandiosity. If you have an image of yourself as attractive and appealing to the opposite sex, that image is not grandiose if you are in fact attractive and appealing. Grandiosity, and thus narcissism, is a function of the discrepancy between the image and the self. There is a difference between the self and its image, just as there is between the person and his or her reflection in a mirror. Narcissists identify with the idealized image. The actual self-image is lost. It is unacceptable to them. They love their image, not their real self. If we do not love ourselves, we cannot love others. Love may be viewed as a sharing of the self with another person. Intimacy describes the sharing of the self. But you have to have a sense of self in order to share it. You can lose a sense of self if you invest your energies in the ego or self-image. Having withdrawn their libido from people in the world, narcissists are condemned to fall in love with their image, that is, direct their libido to their ego. Narcissus was not in love with himself, but with his image, which took on an independent reality. Narcissism is a form of image love, or ego love. By focusing their attention and interest entirely on their image, narcissists ignore the bodily self. People engage in many activities designed to enhance their image. Gaining power and making money, for instance, often have little to do with feelings on the body level. The ego satisfaction they provide stems from their support of our image. Having a book published can do great things for your ego. You can base your identity on being an author, but it does nothing for your body. People may have a public image based on their social position and power, but this does not make them narcissists. They do become narcissistic, however, if they base their personal identity on this public image, rather than on their body feelings. Narcissists replace an unacceptable self with an acceptable facade. This substitution occurs in childhood, under pressure from the parents, that leaves the child no choice. But once the substitution is made, the image becomes all-important. The person now admires the image they project, and, like Narcissus, falls in love with it. This love is not self-love, for with the facade, the person has rejected the true self as unacceptable. The false self rests on the surface, as the self presented to the world. It stands in contrast to the true self, which resides behind the image. This true self is the feeling self, but it is denied and hidden. Narcissism develops from the denial of feeling. Two emotions in particular are subject to severe inhibition: sadness and fear. Their expression makes the person feel vulnerable. To express sadness leads to an awareness of loss and evokes longing. To long for someone or to need someone leaves the person open to possible rejection and humiliation. Not wanting is a defense against possible hurt. If you don't feel afraid, you don't feel vulnerable. Presumably, you can't be hurt. The denial of sadness and fear enables you to project an image of independence, courage, and strength. This image hides your vulnerability from yourself and from others. All of us are vulnerable to being hurt, rejected, or humiliated. Yet, not all of us deny our feelings. Try to project an image of invulnerability and superiority, or strive for power. The difference lies in our childhood experiences. Every narcissist has deep fear of humiliation. Narcissists had the experience of being deeply humiliated in childhood by parents who used power as a means of control. In many cases, the power is physical force. The parents use their superior physical strength to force the child into submission. Spankings are a common form of such physical abuse. There are parents who intensify the beating if the child cries, as if to deny the child even the right to express hurt. Physical punishment is not the only way to humiliate a child. Frequently, children are criticized in a manner that makes them feel worthless, inadequate, or stupid. The list of ways children can be put down, beaten, broken, and denied respect for their humanity and selfhood is long. And many parents think there is nothing wrong in this attitude. It passes as the right thing in bringing up a child. There may be a place for punishment in the upbringing of children, but in many cases, it serves as a form for the parents' release of suppressed rage and anger. The child, being helpless and dependent, has to take it, or risk an even greater rage. As children, narcissists suffer a severe narcissistic injury, a blow to self-esteem that scars and shapes their personalities. This injury entails humiliation, specifically the experience of being powerless, while another person enjoys the exercise of power and control over them. When a child is constantly exposed to humiliation in one form or another, the fear of humiliation becomes structured in the body and the mind. Such a person could easily vow, "When I grow up, I will get power, and neither you nor anyone else will be able to do this to me again." The conflict between parent and child generally stems from the parent's desire to shape the child in accord with some image in the parent's mind, and the child's resistance to this effort. The feelings aroused in children by such treatment are pain, sadness, and rage. To survive such a situation, children have to suppress their rebellion and submit. Because these feelings are more than a child can handle, you must evoke the protective shield against them. You must not let himself feel. If he felt fully, he would scream out his pain, sob his sadness, and strike out with a destructive fury. But she does not do this. That would seem crazy. Her solution is to armor herself, to tense the muscles of her body, so that any expression of feeling is impossible. But this valid defense becomes a neurosis when it is continued into adulthood and operates in situations in which the person is not helpless. She has put herself into a psychological straitjacket. Denial of feelings rigidifies the ego, diminishing its capacity to respond emotionally to reality. The rigid ego is like a rigid rider on a horse, vulnerable to being thrown by any strong upsurge of movement or feeling. The ego's safety lies in a deadened body, with little emotion. Narcissists compensate for the injury that happened in childhood by gaining power in the world. Power and control protect the individual from possible humiliation, from feeling vulnerable. They have to control situations in which they find themselves. They have to make sure that there is no possibility that some other person will have power over them. Power is a means of overcoming a feeling of inferiority. Most parents want something, or seem to need something from their children. For some parents, a child has to be successful in the world, often to compensate for the parent's own sense of failure. For others, the child has to be outstanding, to achieve some recognition that will make the parent feel important. Parents tend to identify with their children and to project onto them their own unfulfilled longings and desires, and children sense the parents' expectations. Too often, parents look only to a child's achievements, to signs of specialness in the world. They follow a child's progress as fans follow a team's. How well is the child doing at school, in sports, with friends? Failure is not acceptable. Unfortunately, it is very difficult for a child who has been made to feel special at home to accept being average or common in the world. Parents do have sufficient physical force to break a child's will, and many take advantage of this power. A parent's strongest weapon is rejection, or the threat of it. Since children are completely dependent on their parents, they cannot resist this threat. But this tactic also generates hostility and an underlying rebellion in the child, which will defeat the parent in the end. As the child grows older and stronger, they will challenge the parent again and again in an effort to destroy the parent's power and to gain power over the parent. To be subject to another person's power is a humiliating experience. This insult to the person's ego can be wiped out only by reversing the situation, namely by gaining power over the person who inflicted the narcissistic injury. The experience of humiliation underlies narcissists' striving for power. Through power, they believe that they can wipe out the insult. Any challenge to their power or image evokes the fear of being humiliated. Power compensates for inner feelings of fear, humiliation, and helplessness. They must remain in control. Control is maintained by denying and suppressing feeling. To be superior is to be above the body and its lower nature. The person or the self is in the head, energetically speaking, rather than in the body. Energy or libido is invested in the ego and focused on the image the person is projecting. Narcissists feel special and superior, thinking themselves above the body and denying feeling. In many ways, power is a denial of our humanity. To be human is to accept your helplessness in life, recognize your dependence on others, and admit your failures and wrongs. Through power, the narcissist attempts to transcend feelings of helplessness and dependency. But isn't a certain helplessness part of the human condition? We don't ask to be born, and we have no say over when we will die. We cannot choose with whom to fall in love. There are many instances in which we are not the masters of our fate. Yet, our helplessness in these areas is tolerable because all human beings are in the same boat, and we need each other to counter the darkness, to keep out the cold, to provide meaning to existence. Human beings are social creatures. It is with other people that we find the warmth, the excitement, and the challenge of life. And only within the human community do we dare face the frightening unknown. Narcissists are not exceptions to this human need. They too need people, but they dare not acknowledge this need. To do so is to admit and face their vulnerability. In their own minds, they hold themselves out as superior, believing they don't need anyone. Asking for help would be opening the narcissistic wound suffered as a child. When helpless and dependent, they were used by the parent who had power. Being in need and being helpless seem to allow the other person to control your fate. Since you are helpless and do have needs, despite your denial, you find the solution in gaining sufficient power, money for example, so that you can buy or command what you need without risking the danger of rejection or seduction. Power allows us to gain human contact without the danger of being used. With power, we can attract others. What is common to all people is the body and its functioning. On a basic level, all bodies function similarly. To be special, you must deny your identification with your body, or that would mean that you are like everyone else. And to be special, you must also deny your feelings, or they too are common. Everyone loves, hates, gets angry, sad, frightened, etc. We are each unique, but that does not make us special. If we are wise, we don't base our identity on our special ability. Being special sets us apart. We refer to ordinary people as the common people. The common people have each other. They belong to the human race. They share the common struggle. Your true needs are never satisfied through an image. Your real need is to accept yourself as you are, which means to accept all your feelings, your fears, anger, sadness, and even despair. True beauty lies in an inner aliveness, not an external show of looks. Narcissists must learn to give up control. They must learn to let their feelings and emotions move them. Otherwise, they will never know the glory of love and joy. But the fear of being carried away by feeling frightens narcissists. It raises a fear of insanity, against which they will mobilize all their defenses. The tragedy of narcissists is that, on some deep level, they desperately want to love and be loved, but they cannot or dare not express these feelings. It would evoke too much pain. It is important not to be caught in the narcissism of our culture that identifies personal fulfillment with success. You can satisfy your ego with such success, but it does not fulfill your basic needs. The basic needs are body needs, and can only be fulfilled on a body level. They are to breathe fully and deeply, to eat with a healthy appetite, to sleep when you are tired, and to make love with a passionate desire. What is the good of being successful, achieving a name, if you are sick and miserable in your being? We are most fulfilled in our being when we are most alive. Fulfillment is in the full use of our faculties. It is narcissistic to think that we are only fulfilled through the use of our minds. Not to enjoy the use of our legs to walk, our arms to hold, our eyes to see, our lips to kiss, is to be deprived, not fulfilled. A cool drink of water when one is thirsty is an example of real pleasure. It would be hard to match that pleasure with the finest cocktail. Similarly, any good meal when you are hungry is enjoyable. On the other hand, eating the best meal when you are not hungry can be painful. Yet, knowing these simple pleasures, most of us do not organize our lives around them. We eat and sleep by set hours, regardless of our feelings. We don't let ourselves get really thirsty or famished. Water and food are too readily available. In this sense, the material richness of our lives is a handicap to the enjoyment of life. People living closer to a survival level may experience more discomfort, but they will also know the greater pleasure of fulfillment when their basic needs are met. A person finds their true fulfillment in being, not doing. In being the kind of person who, through their own good feelings, can help others feel good too. Your accomplishments are the icing on the cake, the gravy on the meat. Only narcissists confuse the dressing with the meal. When we base our identity on a lifestyle, we are confusing the artifact with its creator, the house with its occupant, the facade with the feeling self. A house without an occupant is not a home. A lifestyle without a self is not a person. The modern individual seems to need a sense of power to overcome an inner desperation stemming from the experience of being powerless as a child and powerless as an adult. But power cannot resolve the complex human problems. Our aspiration for godhood is reflected in our search for omniscience, our striving for omnipotence, and our wish for immortality. But as long as there is a God or some superior force to whom we ascribe these qualities, we stay within the limits of human nature. We recognize that our knowledge is always incomplete, that our power will always be insufficient to affect our fate. This recognition is the basis of humility and humanity. It permits us to say, "I don't know," and it allows us to empathize with others, for we admit our commonness. Recognizing and accepting our limits, we become true persons, not narcissists. This is not a classic book on how to deal with narcissists. It's more about how narcissism develops. It's a worthy read for narcissists themselves, but not their victims. So read this book if you are a narcissist.